The three newcomers that could elevate the UConn women's basketball 25-26 version from title contender to potentially unbeatable. You're on the Hoops Cap.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Yeah. UConn, baby. Home of the champions. Let's go.
Welcome into the Hoops Cap Pod, powered by Big East Energy Network. With me, as always, T. Baker. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto. T. We decided we were going to talk about three players that really haven't gotten a ton of pub on, and because of how much talent this UConn women's basketball team, 15 deep. I've heard someone say if you took the top 7 players on UConn, they'd be the number 1 team in the country. If you took the 7 through 15, they'd probably be top 10 in the country. So the embarrassment of riches. So like a lot of people fall through the cracks. So the three players we're going to talk about today, and the one that I want to start with is someone that's been getting a lot of comments on the YouTube channel about they think she's going to start, potentially over either Ashlyn Shade or somebody else, is Blanca Quinonez. Tell me about, we've talked about her a little bit, but what are your initial thoughts about Blanca and her coming to UConn?
Yeah, well, definitely one of the interesting players to start with in terms of like unknowns, because we don't have a whole lot of sort of like national recruiting about her. You look at things like Hoop Girls or our sort of scouting pages domestically, and you don't see a player like Blanca Quinonez. And so in that way, she's sort of a secret weapon for the team, in that we don't actually know how she stacks up against the other players. And ultimately, we don't know how any of those players stack up once they get to college level competition, but she's not even in those rankings, right? So she's one of those players, professional experience, overseas, has represented her home country of Ecuador in various age brackets, the senior national team, in the South American Women's Championship. So she has that professionalism, that level of experience that comes ready to play, knows what to do, and isn't your typical freshman by any means.
Yeah, I think what I love about her, and that's well said, is in the little bit that I've seen, and also talked to a few international scouts, including Kieran Quinn, who has a lot to do with Gandy Malou Mamel being here, and we'll talk about her later in the program too. That she is just similar to Gandy, that she's just physically ready, and a little different than someone like Sarah Strong, who was physically gifted, but a freshman. You're kind of coming through the high school ranks. When you play the leagues that Blanca played in as a 15, 16-year-old girl, like you kind of are forced into the fire, right? And so he feels like she has, and others feel like she has the physical attributes to step in and not have as much of a learning curve. And I kind of look at it from this perspective. She could not score a point next year and still be an incredible factor on this team because of how she gets out on transition, how she's a great two-way player. Her defensive ability, I think, is going to be what stands out. She gets in passing lanes. She's, very long at 6'2", but also fast. Like she just gets out and she's like a lightning bolt. So like those are the things that I've seen so far.
Yeah, and I think it's also just the international experience. Like there's a lot of different elements of the international game that do cross over, and we're seeing an increasingly international game in the WNBA with several international stars on the college level. UConn has in some ways led this trend along with Jose Fernandez at USF, and they have really sort of like gone into this recruiting international students. And another program in the Big East side is Xavier. They had, I think, 12 international players last season on their roster. And I think there's a level of maturity that international players come with because of the ways that their grassroots basketball programs are set up. It's not the traditional AAU high school that we have here in the United States, but a lot of them are professional players at young ages. So these players come hyper prepared, physically elite, and ready to contribute on day one. And I think that's a secret weapon that a lot of these programs have when they recruit internationally, just because there's not a lot of tape of them domestically that can other coaches can use to prepare for them.
I think I've asked you this question before, but I'm curious what you think now, especially we're going to talk about Gandy and Kayleigh Heckel today. I think what's interesting is Kayleigh Heckel's kind of been a sandwich of two international players that there's not a whole lot of tape on, but also I I think all these players have a very unique mindset, which is Kayleigh went to USC and obviously now she's with UConn, but to the point where I feel like Gino is on purpose staying away from players that he feels would come in and feel like they're entitled to be at UConn, and wanting the players that are going to think of this as more of a privilege and a challenge. And I don't know if you feel that way, but that's kind of my sense of why he's gone more international route in the last couple of years. But also, it's just I think he's just old school and like wants a lot of people who are serious about basketball.
Yeah, and I think it's possible EJ Arrow could have a lot to say about this in the sense of his podcast on our network, On Target. So I know he's deep into the dynamics of AAU ball, of the high school grassroots scene. I've covered some of it here and there, but I'm less familiar. I do know that Gino Auriemma is an old school coach, like you said, and is the type of coach that doesn't promise playing time, doesn't really bother himself with those elements of NIL or the branding or the marketing, has other people who navigate that piece. But it's interesting that in the changing landscape of college basketball, of the professionalism of college basketball, that UConn has been able to maintain that sort of level of elite talent that is going there to develop as basketball players. And we've talked about it, moving to Stores, Connecticut, you aren't as connected to certain opportunities you might get in larger cities. You might not be able to get the same brand deals you get elsewhere, but you get an elite college basketball experience that ultimately in the long run hopefully sets you up for success in the WNBA, like we're seeing with players like Caitlin Chen, and future opportunities, because you're going to school to learn your craft. And I think he wants players who do that. And international players still can't benefit from NIL. So there's that element sort of like not on the table for those players, and it allows for a different dynamic and a different player readiness on day one than say a freshman that's coming right out of high school.
No, I agree. And I think, and listen, she's playing here locally, and I say locally, like I think she's at Christ the King, but one of the players that they're hot on for 2026 is Olivia Vukosa, who, is I think she's of Croatian descent. I think she's had some international experience as well in the FIBA under 20 and under 17 circuit. So like, to me, whether she has or she hasn't, I'm almost positive because I looked it up earlier. But I think that's just kind of like you're gonna keep seeing that trend. Like, a great example of someone that's played in the States, and we're not going to talk about her today, but Kayleigh Fisher is also a pretty serious kid too. Because listen, if you're gonna go play at an academy, that's basically you're telling the world this is what I do. You're not, at your local high school, even if it's a prep school. So that was a decision, and so. It's not about American kids are entitled and international kids are not. There's just a different mentality. If you grow up listen, Sarah Strong grew up in Spain for most of her life. So it's just a different world than growing up locally here in Raleigh. So I just think it's something to keep looking at, because I think we're not going to see the end of it.
No, and it's again a trend that is more broadly in women's basketball. We've seen this on the NBA side over the past decades. Like the best players in the NBA are international players over the past several years. When you talk about Luka Doncic, the other ones,
Giannis Antetokounmpo,
men's basketball,
Jokic, he's won 3 of the last 4 MVPs. But to your point, like we're gonna see it. You're seeing it on the men's side too. Like with the UConn men, they signed 2 international players. One's a freshman, one's a redshirt junior. So one from Croatia, the other Serbian. I'm probably off on that, but still, like I think you're gonna see a mixture and a healthy mixture of some freshmen, some transfer, and some international. And if one year is more heavy international, I guess I wouldn't read too much into it, but who was the other player that picked South Carolina? That she's from Canada. She was a top prospect. I can't think of her name off the top of my head. Very similar player to Blanca. You know what I'm talking about?
Letitia Mehier?
No.
More recently than that?
No, it's pretty recent. I think I can't think of her name. I literally can picture her face right now. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up because it's gonna drive me crazy.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point about just like overall like that importing of players from other countries bring in new styles, like they're importing their styles alongside them coming, and I think that just grows the game overall. And it's a type of basketball that Gino Auriemma has experience with. He's the first coach in the U.S. women's national team to coach the team twice. So he had to two Olympics, I'm sorry, and has had that international experience as well. Himself is an immigrant, right? So I think he values that grit of coming to a new country, learning a new language. I think he has like a soft spot for that as well, and it has informed his recruiting process.
And by the way, that player is Agat McCord.
Right.
She's from Canada. She did start playing at Monteverde in Florida. So, again, like most of these players, if they're international, sometimes they come play in the States. The UConn men have a similar one in Eric Reiba, who is in Germany, and he came over to the States. He's at the Bullis School. So it's definitely a trend that's taking over all of college basketball, not just the women's. Okay, let's transition and let's talk about Kayleigh Heckel. What do you think her role is going to be? I think she might be the most intriguing of all of this, just based off of what the type of playing time she'll get and the type of role. Is she going to be a comfortable player off the ball? Because she kind of has always been more of a point guard. So I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, it's tough because she's dynamic and versatile. Like I think she can handle both roles. I've seen her sort of described as a point guard, but also a shooting guard or a wing. Like, and that's just modern basketball too, is like a little bit of positionless game. I think that there's a lot of different roles that she could step into, and it depends on how other players show up and how they perform and how she compares in performance compared to them. I think, and we've talked about this last week on our episode of sort of like the presumed starting lineup includes KK Arnold as point guard.
Right.
It includes Ashlyn Shade potentially as that secondary shooting guard, surrounded by wings. Could she be sort of like the third wing? She has to compete for minutes against AZ Fudd, against Sarah Strong, against Sarah Williams, right? In terms of starting lineup, but it'll be interesting. I mean, she's an elite player. We know this. One of the top rated players in her class, was a huge loss for the USC program that she left. But I think time will tell. I mean, what's exciting about Kayleigh Heckel is also has international experience on the USA basketball side of things. So also brings that level of like gold medal pedigree, has the experience of competing internationally, can blend with a lot of different styles. So I think what'll be interesting is to see how those minutes shake out. It's possible that part of the reason she left USC was for minutes. I don't know. That's a little bit of speculation, but oftentimes that's what we see. And so how does the coaching staff balance that while also giving minutes to players like Ashlyn Shade, AZ Fudd, who have been in the program for several years now and are solidly in the rotation? I think that, again, good problem to have. But as you manage a lot of talent, you also have to make sure you're giving people what they want and need out of their time in the program. So she could easily be a starter. She could easily be a player that comes off the bench and is just a massive boost in the backcourt as well.
Yeah, I think, again, I look at this as like all good points. I look at it like it's almost like insurance against injury. You have Kayleigh Heckel can play multiple positions. Positional versatility is a big thing. I do think that being a backup to Juju Smith-Schuster and averaging 6 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists, it's pretty damn good because you're not getting a ton of time ahead of Juju, who is if not the best player in the country, she's top 2 or 3. So in terms of, of her production, where she could potentially fit in, I think that if she competes at a high level and shows that she's the McDonald's All-American and Jordan Brand All-American that she was a couple years back, she's going to push KK. She's going to push Kayleigh Fisher. She's going to push Ashlyn Shade, for minutes. And so I don't necessarily think that it's going to come to fruition, but if she has, I think she came to UConn for it. It can't be for minutes because she would have played a lot at USC this year with no Juju. Like, think about it, right? She would have probably started. So it's got to be about just getting better and being the best version of yourself. I think that's what gets lost as to like these super teams that UConn puts together. It's like, do you know how hard practice must be versus the game? Like playing against all these top players every day has to make you so much better when you go and play Villanova, when you go and play, whoever you have to play during the year in the Big East, and then it gets you ready for the season. practice should be 1,000 times harder than the game. And I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, and I think that's the sort of magic balance that the UConn program has struck over these past several decades, is having a lot of talent, but coaching in a way that allows that talent to push other talent to be their best selves, instead of creating a dynamic of jealousy or I before team. And I think that's the masterful part of this program that, those who spend a lot of time around the program can observe and see. But that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of ability to navigate conflict and to have difficult conversations about playing time. So, I mean, I think that having her there is just, again, insurance plan, an elite player in practice, someone who can compete for starting time, and someone who could easily slot into the role that KK Arnold had last season of spark off the bench. Because we also need to remember she's an elite defender, was third on the team last season at USC in steals, and is fast. And so she can sort of step into that KK role that was so successful last season pretty easily, and have sort of that same rotational effect that KK Arnold had.
What honestly, like with this team, just broadly, when you're thinking about how good defensively they can be, I mean, is there a thought this year where they literally could hold their opponents, especially in the Big East, to like 30, 40 points a game? Like, with the size and the length and the quickness that they have at every position, it's going to be really difficult to score on this team.
Yeah, you're going to see lopsided games this year. And I think over the past several years, we've gotten a little used to sort of like an equalizing effect in the sport. I think that where the state of the Big East is, and it's hard to say, right? And of course, I cover all the teams on the Big East side, so I have a chance to kind of see how their rosters form over time. But you have a lot of turnover in the Big East. Some of Creighton's biggest stars have left to graduation. At Villanova, there's been roster turnover over the past several years. There's a lot of new transfers coming in. And so it's hard to know how that talent all blends together. And so you could have some really surprising, in a good way, Big East teams, and you will. And you can have some teams that are just finding their footing and playing a team like UConn that is elite, does have chemistry of playing several years together, at least, 4 out of 5 likely of their starting 5. Like, that's going to be really tough to compete with for any program. And in particular, some of these Big East teams finding their footing with new rosters, newer coaches, and really just finding their way into the conferences, trying to get into that top tier of the Big East.
I don't disagree. Speaking of defense, speaking of quickness, international play, Gandy Malou Mamel is one of the most intriguing prospects that UConn has on the entire roster. That includes Blanca, that includes even last year with Sarah Strong, because she is kind of an anomaly. She's 6'5". If you ask Kieran, who hosted her, obviously as kind of like her guardian here in the States when she came over from Ireland and also from the Congo, he says she's a legit 6'6", because he's 6'7", and his son is 6'7", 6'8", and she practices with Kieran's son like all the time, who's like a 4-star recruit right now as a junior himself. And he's even said that his son will come to him and be like, "Dad, she's legit powerful. Like, she'll like bang into you, and it's just like you move, like you get, this kid's like 6'7", 6'8", 220. So she's a legit force. She's raw." Had a whole interview with him on her and her journey, which is incredible in its own self. But as a basketball player, she's not gonna be a scorer at first, but she is a rim runner, and she's an incredible defender, potentially great offensive rebounder. So I don't know where she fits. Like, I want to see her play a lot, because I think the more time she gets, the better she's gonna become. But I'm excited for her because of the personal experience I have with Kieran, but also just because you can't fake like the excitement, because she's a legit big body. Like, she's a monster. She's 6'6".
Yeah. And there's a reason that she was recruited to UConn, right? Like, there's an ability to see raw talent, and it might not be there now, but there's certainly something they see in her that has potential. I'm not sure in her first season in a really crowded front court with Kiana Alfie, with Ice Brady, with Ayanna Patterson, with Sarah Strong, with Sarah Williams. Like, that's going to be tough to make into that rotation, right? But
Sure.
what you do get the ability to do is play against those elite players every day in practice. Have a post coach like Chris Daly who will, hold you accountable, keep you on that trajectory of learning. So we might not see a lot of minutes from her this season just because of the way that front court is so stacked. But she's getting the opportunity to develop a year at UConn and setting herself up for later years to be a serious contributor on the team.
I mean, I wouldn't be so surprised that some of the players that people feel aren't going to get minutes are. I feel like with how people are probably right, and everything you just said is true. But also, if they just destroy people early, you're not going to see AZ in the fourth quarter. You know what I'm saying? Like you could still see Gandy for 5 minutes at a time. You could still see, even like someone like Caroline Ducharme, who's, in a redshirt, like senior year, working her way back in some of these games that have kind of gotten out of hand to kind of just knock the rust off. So you're going to see the opposite, right? You're going to see someone like that knocking rust off. You're going to see someone like Gandy, someone like, trying to think of like Kayleigh Fisher, if she's not like the ready to go as the starting point guard this year, which she probably won't be. She's going to get a lot of run in these games where they're up by like 40, 50 points, which I think is going to happen more than 10 times this year. So, I mean, like, I just think there's an opportunity for them to see what they have before it becomes critical that they play.
For sure. And I think that's the strategy that hopefully the coaching staff is considering. I know in the past, in the sort of like dark years where UConn didn't win for 9 seasons, the championship, but made it to the Final Four, all but one. Some of the criticism of Coach Auriemma has been his unwillingness perhaps to go deeper in his bench, even when the game's well out of hand. So I think last season we saw a little bit more of that reliance on depth, but that was also because for the first time in 4 seasons, they had healthy bodies, right? So not only is it an opportunity to explore different lineups, get them practice and reps during the regular season, but again, it is that like when you're in the Final Four and you're competing against the bigs, against South Carolina, Joyce Edwards, some of these just players who we know have elite post presence, like some of these SEC teams that have just depth in the front court in particular, you're going to need players to get rest throughout tournament runs. You're going to need Ice Brady to not play 40 minutes or Janelle Alfie to compete the whole game, right? You need to have an ability to rotate those players in and out to stay fresh with teams that similarly have depth at that position. And I think that's been a major critique of UConn over the past decade, at least, which is like not always emphasizing post players, depth at the post player. We've had a lot of guard depth. Even some people this year were like, oh, you're bringing in Kayleigh Heckel. We already have so many elite guards. But you could say the same about the post players at this point, because there's that pipeline of post players that have come in. So yeah, it's going to be just a fun season. I can't wait to see how the rotations take shape. It's just so fascinating to think about the team this year without Paige Beckers, who has been obviously since she stepped on campus, the face of the program, the best player on the program. So it's really going to be an identity shift, and it'll be interesting to see both who gets minutes and who emerges as leaders in that new environment.
I don't disagree at all. All right, you ready to play a fun game with me that I didn't put on our pre-show script?
Let's do it.
Okay, so I used to be, I think like a lot of people, you have these different jobs in your life, and it shapes like how you view people. And my wife is still in the food service industry. She's a manager at a restaurant, and so I still hear the same stories about, oh man, you should have seen the attitude on this person, blah blah blah. So I still hear all that stuff. So on our weekly show on the men's side with Casey, I did pictures and I asked him who he thought would be a good tipper as one of the coaches. So I'm going to put a name up. I'm going to do this with 4 different coaches. They're all famous women's coaches. You're going to know every single one I put up. And so I want you to give me what percentage is their standard, what percentage is like for really good service, and what do they give if it's like, oh, I can't believe we just got that waiter. Deal?
All right. Yeah, sounds good.
First one.
We got to start with Muffet.
Yeah. What kind of tipper is she?
I don't think Muffet's a good tipper. I don't think Muffet's a good tipper. I
What's your standard of good? What's a good tip from?
I mean, again, so I worked in food service. I was like a server. 20 to 25 is my standard. Even the service isn't great. Like you got to tip your servers. I think Muffet McGraw, like we've seen her do some, you know, questionable things with some of the players who have left her program. I think about kind of the way that Jewel Lloyd left for the WNBA, and she was a little bit like, you know, miffed about it. I don't know. I feel like there's a pride that she has, which is like, you know, you gotta bootstraps kind of vibe. I don't know. So maybe, and this is gonna get me just canceled on the internet, I know for sure, but I would say she's probably like a 12.5.
Wow, allegedly. You gotta say allegedly.
Allegedly.
Oh wow,
she sets a high standard, and if you don't meet it, and she can be a little, you know, a little bit edgy about certain things. So yeah, I'm gonna go 12.5%.
12.5% allegedly.
Allegedly.
Okay. All right, I got one for you.
I think Dawn Staley is a great tipper. Dawn Staley
Okay.
probably buys the staff dinner. I just think she has a graciousness and you can see where some of my bias lies here. I love Dawn Staley. I think she's one of the not only the greatest people in the sport from a X's and O's perspective, but one of the greatest people in our sport. So yeah, I'm giving her 20%. That's
the standard 20. If she gets great service, she's going above it.
Yeah.
That's your opinion. Okay.
Yeah.
20% to me is not a good tip, but I'm okay with it. It's okay if you give average service. Casey was shocked by that too. Like when I was talking about like 20% for me, I don't know. It's because my wife is still in it, and also I've just been out to dinner too many times, like where you have kids and they're being pains in the asses, and you feel bad. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, man. Like it's a hard job. All right. Go ahead.
I mean, Gino works in the restaurant industry. He gets a taste of what that's like. He owns a restaurant. I think he's a great tipper as well. So yeah, let's give 25 to Gino if that's what we're saying is a good
tipper. Ooh, baby.
I see it for him as someone who's in the business, as someone who understands what his, you know, employees go through. I feel like he's a very generous man in that way. Very generous with his money.
I like that. All right, last one.
I knew Kim was coming. I knew it was coming. I mean,
what you got?
I feel like she's like a 15% tipper.
Really? I think opposite. I think she could go 15%. I think she could be that person.
Yeah.
But she just strikes me as someone that presents as like bitchy, but like doesn't present it like in a way that she wants to be that way. Yeah. Like she wants to be the grandma. She wants to be the nicey. Like, you know, like I'm gonna do. If you gave her great service, I think she's giving you 25%. But if you gave her crap service, she's giving you, maybe she might be lower than Muffet. She might give you 10%.
And I mean, and I with Muffet, it's like, you know, as a UConn fan, I just can't give her any benefit of the doubt. Like it's just not, I'm not allowed to.
No, it's fair. So, it's fair. It's fair.
With Kim, I see what you mean. I feel like 15 could be her standard, but I also agree with you. I think she's incredibly aware of the people who are in her community, that she does give back to the community, cares about people around her. So I don't think she's like some monster, and that's why she's tipping that way. But I think, again, has high standards, knows what she likes, knows what she's looking for. So she'll hold you accountable as a service person.
Let me ask you this question, because I asked Casey this. Like, do you think my opinion is formed because of my age too? Because I feel like all of these folks, you know, they're older people. Dawn's like the youngest of that group, right? But for the most part, they're, you know, boomers and older folks. And so like my dad is a terrible tipper. Like he's a great man. Like I love him to death, but he's just not very good at tipping. Like, and that's also part of like how he grew up. It's like, oh man, I got to give like this. And he's evolved over time. It's like, we've been like, listen, man, like this is not something that you should do on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So do you think, I wonder, actually, this is an even better question. Do you think someone like Chris Daly, if Gino wanted to give a bad tip, do you think Chris Daly would be like, nah, dude, you can't do that? Like, who are the people that hold them accountable? Is it their assistants, their significant others? Like, I'm just curious what your thought would be.
I mean, I don't think Kathy Oriema's letting Gino leave a bad tip.
That's true too.
So there's that piece. Maybe Muffet's husband. I think, they seem like, decent enough people. They would want to do the right thing. He might hold Muffet accountable, or, it's a Catholic school. You just got to listen to the man upstairs. And when you make these decisions, you got to listen with that in mind. Right. So
maybe
it could just be that Catholic guilt will take you to do a lot of things. And as a Catholic, I experienced that. Right. So, Muffet has the same shame I do, and that's the shared ground we can find.
I love it. All right. Well, I love playing these fun games with T. We hope you guys enjoyed the show. I know I enjoyed hosting it with him. Let me tell you something. UConn women's basketball is going to be electric next year. The three players we talked about today are Blanca Quinonez, Kayleigh Heckel, and Gandy Malou Mamel. All going to be phenomenal players for them. We'll see how it shakes out as the team and the minutes they get. But either way, looking forward to the season. It's getting closer and closer by the passing day. All the best, guys. We'll see you next time on the Hoop Scout.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Yeah. UConn, baby.